The NBA made its triumphant return to NBC this season, and who did Universal bring in to really start it off with a bang? Who did they bring in to engage all audiences? They brought in the GOAT, also known as Michael Jordan. They teased Michael Jordan appearing up and down the bill to get people tuned in, to get people watching. Now, February 1st, they're rolling something else out. Basketball Night in America. Well, Michael Jordan, he already fulfilled his duties. He already took care of his commitments. He already reached all requirements on the contract. So who do they need to go get? Well, the next best thing, I suppose. Caitlin Clark.
ESPN fans, listen carefully because this move just changed the balance of power in women's basketball. Caitlin Clark just joined NBC's NBA studio panel. Not as a random guest, not as a one-time cameo. A real on-air role placed right next to NBA legends in prime time during the exact window when the WNBA Players Union is preparing for a CBA fight that could threaten the 2026 season.
Now, similarly, they've created some buzz with Caitlin Clark, who was announced as a special contributor for the broadcast also. She will be joining the crew there. You see Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. And CC will be making her TV analyst debut.
Stay with me, because at the end, I'm going to show you the single line in NBC's announcement that tells you how they plan to market Caitlin going forward, and why that one line quietly pressures every negotiation inside the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark has landed herself a new, very high-profile position, and I've been wondering when this was going to happen. I knew at some point, somewhere, with some miscellaneous media outlet, Caitlin Clark would get a gig, and now we know where that gig's going to be, when that gig's going to be, and who that gig's going to be for.
Here's the context. The WNBA is heading toward the end of its current collective bargaining agreement, and players have already signaled they're willing to use real leverage if the next deal doesn't deliver what they want. That means bigger pay, better travel, better working conditions, and a bigger slice of what the league is now generating. But the problem with a holdout is simple. It only works if everyone feels the same pain at the same time. And Caitlin just made a move that reduces her pain, because her NBC role carries through the spring of 2026. So if the WNBA season happens on time, she wins. But if the season gets delayed or negotiations drag, she still wins. That's why people are reacting. Not because how dare she, but because it exposes a reality that's been building for a long time. Some players are tied to the WNBA calendar, but Caitlin is building a career that can survive without it. Now let's talk about what NBC actually did, because the details are what make this feel like a statement. NBC is launching Basketball Night in America. They're modeling it like a major event broadcast, the way they build big nights in football, and they're not hiding Caitlin in a side segment. Her debut is scheduled for February 1st before Lakers vs. Knicks at Madison Square Garden. That is one of the biggest stages you can possibly choose. And she's back March 9th for Thunder vs. Knicks. Again, primetime matchups, big markets, and a broadcast designed to travel on social media.
Announced on Tuesday that Caitlin Clark will join NBC Sports to serve as a special contributor for its new Basketball Night in America program. Caitlin Clark will make her debut as a TV analyst on February 1st, preceding the Lakers vs. Knicks game at Madison Square Garden, per a release from NBC. Wow. So this would be akin to, they have Sunday Night Football, and it starts with a pregame show called Football Night in America.
That's not a trial run. That's NBC saying, we are putting her in front of the entire basketball audience. And look at the desk they're giving her. Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Reggie Miller. That's a credibility wall. That's NBC saying Caitlin belongs in the same conversation as the game's most recognizable voices. Therefore, this isn't just about Caitlin getting another job. This is about NBC staking a claim in the future of basketball coverage.
here we are. It will be Caitlin Clark's first time in an analyst-type role on TV. That's per Chloe Peterson. She will return to the broadcast table on March 9 for a game between Oklahoma City Thunder and the Knicks. Caitlin Clark joins Michael Jordan as a splashy acquisition for NBC and NBA coverage.
Now here's the part that makes WNBA players feel squeezed. When the union talks about leverage, the threat is time. If the season gets interrupted, players lose paychecks, they lose rhythm, they lose visibility, they lose momentum. But Caitlin's move creates a different reality. She can stay visible in the biggest basketball ecosystem in America, even if the WNBA gets messy. So while some players look at the next CBA and see risk, Caitlin looks at the same window and sees a runway. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying Caitlin is trying to undermine the union. I'm saying her personal incentives are now different because her income and spotlight are not dependent on the WNBA schedule. That difference matters during a labor fight because owners pay attention to who can hold their breath the longest. Networks pay attention to who can keep audiences engaged, and sponsors pay attention to who can guarantee visibility. Therefore, Caitlin's NBC role becomes leverage without her even saying a word. Now add the timing. Her 2025 season ended early due to injury in July, and if the WNBA season starts in May, you're looking at a long gap. A lot of players would use that gap to train, recover, and hope the league takes care of the rest. But Caitlin is filling that gap with three things: media, national team commitments, and brand work. So when people say WNBA players explode, what they're really describing is the fear of falling behind. Because in a star-driven league, visibility becomes currency. And Caitlin just locked in a currency printer that runs even if the WNBA pauses. Now here's where the story gets sharper. NBC didn't describe Caitlin as a star of women's basketball. They described her as one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. Basketball, not women's basketball. Basketball, that's the line. And if you understand how networks think, you know why that line is nuclear. It's not just praise, it's positioning. It tells you NBC is not trying to keep Caitlin in a separate category. They're trying to move her into the mainstream basketball conversation beside NBA storylines, NBA debates, and NBA audiences. That is bigger than the WNBA. And that creates two reactions at the same time. Fans see it and think, finally, this is what should have happened. But players see it and think, wait, if the spotlight can move that fast for one person, what does that mean for the rest of us? Because the union's argument is collective value, but the market rewards individual gravity, and Caitlin has gravity. So when the CBA negotiations heat up, owners are going to make a quiet argument. They're going to say, the league is growing, but the growth is concentrated. They'll point to ratings spikes, ticket demand, sponsor interest, and social engagement around a small number of names. And Caitlin will be the center of that story, whether she wants to be or not. That's why this move is not just cool, it's strategic. It gives Caitlin options. It gives NBC a bridge between NBA coverage and WNBA coverage. But it also exposes the uncomfortable question the league has been avoiding. Is the WNBA trying to build an equal system, or is it becoming a star economy? Because if it's a star economy, players will fight harder for revenue share. But if it's an equal system, the league has to protect the collective, even when one person is clearly driving the most attention. And that contradiction is exactly what sets off friction. Now let me give you the real takeaway. If you're trying to predict whether the 2026 season is in danger, you don't need rumors. You need three signals. Signal 1. Watch the union's language. If they move from general frustration to specific timelines, specific demands, and actual vote talk, that's when it gets real. Signal 2. Watch the owner's concessions, not public statements, real changes, travel upgrades, roster expansion, revenue share movement. If you don't see tangible movement, the temperature rises. Signal 3, watch hedge behavior. When stars lock in outside platforms during the danger window, it tells you the industry is preparing for disruption. And when broadcasters build programming that can keep fans engaged, even if the WNBA calendar becomes uncertain, that tells you they're pricing in risk. Therefore, Caitlin joining NBC isn't just a headline, it's a signal. a signal that the biggest star in the league is building a career that doesn't rely on the league's stability. And that reality will force the WNBA to decide what it wants to be: a league that protects the collective, or a league that rides its stars. Because you can't do both forever. So here's the question: is Caitlyn's NBC move smart protection in a messy CBA year? Or is it the first domino that exposes how divided the money and leverage really are? If you're still watching, drop NBC panel in the comments.
Caitlin Clark's rookie year, drawing record viewership, record attendance, and what did we hear? It's not because of Caitlin Clark. This was always going to happen. It was just a matter of time. Okay. Year 2, Caitlin Clark only plays in 13 games. What? The WNBA still puts up record viewership? So the WNBA, heading into year 3, has decided to double down on the "we never needed Caitlin Clark in the first place" narrative.
WNBA is acting like it doesn't need Caitlin Clark. They cut big arena fever road games from 9 to 4. Meanwhile, Nike drops Caitlin gear and the demand goes crazy. That's the whole story. And it's why fans are turning on the league. ESPN can debate impact all day, but the WNBA speaks with decisions. Here's the decision. Last season, Indiana had 9 road games moved into larger arenas. This season, it's 4. And no, the league didn't stop moving games. It moved more games overall. It went from 15 arena moves last season to 19 this season. So the league is shifting more games, but the Fever are getting fewer of the upgrades. That's why this title lands.
Last year, they had 9 games in the beginning of the season in big NBA arenas. This year, that number is down to 4 games, yet the league has went from 15 games last year, 19 games in NBA arenas this year. Teams move fewer Fever visits after Caitlin Clark's injury-riddled season. Indiana had 9 road games moved to larger arenas last year, but just 4 so far for 2026. WNBA teams are moving more games to different arenas this upcoming season, but Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have significantly fewer of those games.
Because even if nobody says the words out loud, the schedule is sending a message. Now, a fair pushback is, maybe it's just logistics. Fine, but picture the situation like a business. You run a venue. You see one opponent coming to town that spikes demand. You have proof from last season, you have resale prices, and you have sellouts. Do you go smaller? Or do you grab the biggest building you can? That's what makes this feel intentional. And in about 20 seconds, I'm going to give you the one move that proves the league blinked. The quiet pivot they always make when the money forces their hand. But first, the clearest receipt.
And the conversation being is the treatment of Caitlin Clark. Ever since Caitlin Clark has got into this league, it's always obstacle after obstacle for this young lady. And it's clear to me, and it should be clear to all of you guys, that there is a hidden agenda against Caitlin Clark for her to be successful in the WNBA. Now, I know some of you guys is thinking, John, what do you mean is there a hidden agenda? Let's start with the first year. You know, she was attacked by pretty much players. Second year, attacked again, but the whistle was just so horrible for Caitlin. She never seen the free throw line at all prior to her getting hurt.
The Fever averaged 15,884 fans on the road last season. That's about 4,000 more than any other team. That gap is not normal. That gap is a single-player economy. People aren't buying WNBA tickets. They're buying Caitlin tickets. So when you reduce big arena Fever games from 9 to 4, you create 2 problems. Problem 1, you leave money on the table. Problem 2, you create suspicion. Because fans don't interpret this as operational caution. They interpret it as gatekeeping. They read it as, you're trying to prove you don't need her. Now zoom in on what that looks like in the real world. A smaller venue. A Fever game announced, tickets vanish, resale jumps, fans travel anyway. The building feels tight, the vibe turns sour. That's not just a bad night, that's a trust leak. Because the fan thinks, you knew demand was coming. Now here's what makes the timing brutal. This is happening while the league is also dealing with bigger uncertainty in the background. Scheduling windows, arena availability, and the fact that big buildings don't hold dates forever. NBA arenas have concerts, they have events, they have other bookings. If you don't lock dates early, you don't maybe miss out. You lose the option completely, and so you can call it logistics, but fans see a choice. And that choice becomes the story. Now let's swing to the other half of the title, Nike. Because while the WNBA schedule shrinks Caitlyn's big arena footprint, Nike is getting hit by the opposite force, demand. Here's the Nike scene people can visualize. It's midnight. The drop goes live, fans refresh, pages stall, checkout fails. The internet floods with screenshots. The viral claim in that Nike story is insane. A $40 shirt, a new Caitlyn logo, and supposedly a wave of traffic so heavy it overwhelmed the system. The story says 10 million site visits and 500,000 orders before things crashed. Are those exact numbers inflated? Maybe. But the signal's still real. Nike doesn't accidentally get caught off guard by normal demand. Nike is built for launches. Therefore, if Caitlyn triggers chaos in that machine, she's not moving like a regular player. She's moving like a superstar. And here's what matters. The WNBA can downplay Caitlyn with a schedule, but it can't outvote the market. And in a moment, I'll show you the exact pressure point where the league will be forced to switch directions. Because Nike demand isn't just merch, it's leverage. When one player sells like that, everything downstream shifts. Sponsors lean in, broadcasters lean in, owners lean in, and the league's tone changes too, even if they pretend it won't. That's why this conflict can't last. The WNBA is sending one signal, fewer big buildings. Nike is sending another, bigger than ever. Those two realities can't coexist for long. One of them has to move. And we already know which one moves, the league. Because the money always pulls the league back to reality. Now let's talk about why fans get nasty over this. It's not because fans think the WNBA should worship one player. It's because fans hate one thing more than anything: disrespect. Fans show up. Fans spend. Fans travel. Fans bring friends. And if they feel like the league is resisting the moment out of pride, they revolt. They don't say, oh, interesting strategy. They say, you're sabotaging the best thing you've got. And that becomes the narrative that spreads. Now here's the tell that reveals the WNBA has changed its mind. It's not a press release, it's not a headline, and it's not ESPN, and it's late venue upgrades. Watch what happens after the schedule is already out. If you start seeing Fever Road games quietly moved into bigger arenas later, that's the league blinking. That's teams admitting the demand forced their hand. That's the silent confession that we don't need Caitlyn doesn't survive contact with ticket sales. And when that starts happening, three things show up right away. 1, more moved to a larger venue announcements. 2, resale spikes around Fever games. 3, broadcast windows quietly improve for Indiana matchups. Because once the machine realizes where the attention is, it stops arguing. It starts adjusting, so don't get distracted by speeches, watch the moves. Because the WNBA can say it's bigger than one player. But Nike just reminded everyone what the public already decided.
It might be a wrap, y'all. I'm losing hope. I'm losing faith. It might be a wrap, especially considering what the MVP and WNBA champion A'ja Wilson just had to say about this CBA.
ESPN is going to love this one because it hits every button people can't ignore. Team USA, a superstar, and a rumor that says someone got pushed out so Caitlyn Clark could step in. Now listen carefully. People are throwing the word fired around. But right now, what's blowing up online is a story, not a clean official roster release you can point to. And the reason it's going viral is because it feels believable. Stay with me to the end, because I'm going to give you a simple 3-signal checklist that tells you when a Team USA roster story is real, and when you're being played for clicks. Here's the story the internet is pushing.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the delusion. This is the entitlement that is prevalent throughout the WNBA dump. This victim mentality, blaming everyone else for your history of huge embarrassing failure. This refusal to accept responsibility for the fact that this league has been pretending to be in business for 30 years and has still never turned a profit. And I say pretending to be in business because if the WNBA were operating like an actual business, this league would be bankrupt.
It starts with a phone call. They say Asia Wilson picks up, thinking it's the usual Team USA check-in. Schedules, camp details, normal stuff. But instead, she hears the one sentence no veteran wants to hear. You're not on the roster, not we're adjusting your role, not we're shifting minutes. The story says she's just off. And the transcript version adds one detail designed to hit you in the gut. Right after the call, Asia allegedly texts her agent 3 words. 3 words. That forces your brain to fill in the emotion, shock, anger, betrayal. Therefore, even people who don't like Asia click, because they want to know what the 3 words were. But here's where it gets bigger than one call. The rumor claims Team USA didn't do this because Asia can't play. That would be ridiculous. It claims they did it because the environment changed, because the spotlight changed, because Caitlin Clark is now the center of the attention economy in women's basketball. The story says Asia spent 2 years taking shots at Caitlin, questioning her impact, undermining her achievements, and it says it finally backfired. Now, I'm not telling you any of that is confirmed. I'm telling you why this rumor spreads like fire.
KTV was slipping. Shout out to Christine Brennan. Team USA, y'all need to stop playing. Hold on, wait a second. Y'all will recognize and appreciate Caitlin Clark as the face of this whole get up. Nobody's checking for these other, no disrespect. Great basketball players. That don't mean people checking for you. You mean to tell me y'all put other people's face all on the Team USA stuff and y'all left Caitlin Clark off of it? Have you lost your mind?
Doesn't have time for petty stuff. They believe international basketball is ruthless. Short camps, hard cuts, no patience. Therefore, the rumor feels like something Team USA would do if they thought chemistry was even slightly off. And here's the fear factor. If the internet can sell the idea that Asia Wilson is expendable, then every player hears the message. Nobody is safe if the organization decides the next era matters more than the old order. But the craziest part of this story isn't Asia, it's Caitlin. Because look, the rumor doesn't just say Caitlin makes the roster. It says she replaces Asia, it says she gets the keys, starting point guard, the engine. That's the part that triggers the comment wars. To some fans, it feels like disrespect, but to others, it feels like the future. So let's separate what's real from what's narrative. What is real is that USA Basketball has been running this cycle through camps and evaluation pools, and credible coverage has already placed Caitlin Clark in the senior national team training camp environment alongside young stars and Olympic vets. That's not a starting point guard stamp, but it is a signal. Therefore, once Caitlin is in the room, the internet does what it always does. It builds a story where the old guard gets displaced and it picks a symbol. This time, that symbol is Asia Wilson. Now, if you want my honest take, the reason this rumor is sticky is because it matches what international basketball actually values. FIBA play is not the WNBA. Different whistles, different spacing, different rhythm. You don't get the same time to figure it out. Therefore, Team USA selection isn't only about who is the best in the W on a random Tuesday night. It's about who adapts fast, who fits in a short camp, and who can create advantages immediately. And Caitlin's style travels. The passing travels, the pace travels, the deep shooting travels, the ability to create a shot for someone else with one read, that travels. But it also comes with something Team USA can't ignore anymore. attention. Because when Caitlyn is on the floor, every possession becomes a clip. Every clip becomes pressure. Therefore, she doesn't just change the game, she changes the environment around the game. And that's where this rumor becomes a warning. If you're a veteran who publicly fights the league's biggest attention magnet, you create friction with the very thing that is growing the sport. Team USA doesn't want friction. They want alignment. They want winning. So here's the question you should be asking. If Team USA believes Caitlyn can run the offense and also bring the world's eyes with her, would they be willing to annoy people to lock in that future? That's what this rumor is really testing. It's testing whether the sport has moved from respect the hierarchy to follow the gravity. Now, I promised you a payoff. Here's the 3-signal checklist to tell if a Team USA roster story is real. Signal 1, primary source. Did USA Basketball or FIBA publish it directly? Not a clip channel, not a caption account, a direct release, direct tracker. If it's not there, treat it as unconfirmed. Signal 2, multiple reputable confirmations. Do at least 2 established outlets report the same roster detail, and do they point to real documents or real officials? If one account says official and nobody else backs it up, that's not official, and that's marketing. Signal 3, the timeline makes sense. Team USA doesn't fire people like a workplace. They build pools, invite to camp, and then select for specific windows. Therefore, if the story skips the process and jumps straight to a dramatic cut, be suspicious. If all 3 signals line up, then you've got something. If they don't, then you're watching roster theater. But here's the part that matters. Even if this rumor is fake, this is where women's basketball is going. More attention, more politics, more leverage, more fear. And the moment Team USA actually puts Caitlyn in a major role, the sport's power map shifts. Not just on the court, in the media, in endorsements, in who gets defended, in who gets blamed. So I'll end with one simple question. If you were building Team USA for the next era, would you build around Caitlyn's gravity, even if it upset the old hierarchy? If you're still watching, drop Team USA Shift in the comments.